Hello students. Today we will be going over the 4.5 suggested practice problems. For the first problem, we were given this table and we had to come up with an equation. So one way I tried to think about this problem was I looked at the first set of numbers right here, 4, 1, and then I drew a model. So I knew if x is equal to 4, that would represent 4 boxes, and if y were equal to 1, that would be 1/4 of my x value, right? Since I only have 1/4 of the whole 4. So my thinking there was I could take and make the equation y equals x over 4. Now that I've come up with an equation, the next thing I need to do is check my equation to see if it actually is true. So the first thing I did is plug in x equals 4 into my equation. I substituted my value of x for 4 there, so I'm left with y equals 4 over 4. As I work through that, I know 4 over 4 reduces to 1, and then I go back and I check my table. Is that the value I got for y in my table? Yes, it is. So I know that this equation is true for this one. But we have to at least check 2 values in the equation to know if it's true, or in the table to know if our equation is true. So I decided I would check that value x equals 20. So I substituted it in for my x, and I'm left with y equals 20 over 4. I know 20 divided by 4 is equal to 5. I go up and check my table, and I see that I do have a value of y equals 5 when x is equal to 20. Because I checked 2 of these, I know that this equation is true and represents the table right here. So for the next problem, we again were given a table, and we had to kind of figure out an equation that represented this equation. So for this, I started off with a model. I drew 7 blocks to represent x equals 7, and then I drew 2 blocks to represent y equals 2 when x is equal to 7. So from here, I notice, hey, I see a pattern. I see that there's 5 blocks missing from my x value to equal my y. Why don't I try that as my equation? So I came up with y equals x minus 5. Then the next thing I had to do is plug in 2 different values of x in my table and see if they gave me that following y value. So from there, I chose to try x equals 5. So I plugged 5 into my equation, y equals x minus 5, and that left me with y equals 5 minus 5. When I do that math, I get the value y equals 0. From there, I go check that value in my table, and that value is represented in my table. So I know if x is equal to 5, that y is equal to 0, and this equation is true for that. But I can't check just one value. I need to check 2. So for the next value, I try plugging in x equals 9. So I set x is equal to 9, substituted it in for x, and I'm left with y is equal to 9 minus 5. I know 9 minus 5 is equal to 4. And then I go check my table. That is true. And I have generated an equation that represents this table. For the next problem, this one was a bit different. We were given a table and values for x, and we had to find those values for y. So I will show you how I did that. So I knew that I was given these values for x, so I had to plug in that value of x into the equation and solve it for y. So for the value x equals 0, I plugged it into the equation y equals 3x plus 7. When I replace my x with 0, I'm left with y is equal to 3 times 0 plus 7. I do know that anything times 0 is 0. So when I do that operation of multiplication, I'm left with y is equal to 0 plus 7. I know 0 plus 7 equals 7, and that gives me a value of 7 for y that I can plug into my table. But I'm not done there. I have 3 more values of x I need to figure out. So from there, I plugged in x equals 1 into that equation. Remember, I had y equals 3 times x, but I did my substitution, and I said x is equal to 1. So I have y is equal to 3 times 1 plus 7. Remember PEMDAS. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. We're going to see that throughout math as we go along, but this is just another example of it being brought up. I know when I'm solving this equation, I need to do my multiplication of 3 times 1 before I add the 7. So when I multiply 3 times 1, that equals 3, and I'm left with y equals 3 plus 7. When I add that together, I get y equals 10. From there, I plug that value in my table for 10. Then, I plugged in that value x equals 2 into that same equation. I'm left with y equals 3 times 2 plus 7. I have to do my multiplication first, and I get y equals 6 plus 7 then. And once I do that addition, I am left with y equals 13. When I get that value, I plug it right back into my table for x equals 2. And then I have one more value of x that I wanted to solve for. I had x equals 3. When I have that, I know that I can substitute that value of 3 in for x, and I get y equals 3 times 3 plus 7. I know 3 times 3 is 9, so I'm left with y equals 9 plus 7, and I know 9 plus 7 equals 16. With this value, I can plug it in for x and complete my table. For the last problem, we again were given an equation and a table of x values, and then we needed to find the y values. So I did that by plugging in my values for x. Here I had x equals 2, and then I substituted that 2 in for x, and I'm left with y equals 4 times 2 minus 4. I know I have to do my multiplication first, and I know 4 times 2 is 8, so I'm left with y equals 8 minus 4. And once I do that subtraction, I get y equals 4. From there, I can take that value for y and plug it into my table. I also had to then solve to find x. Here, I set x equal to 4 and substituted in for my equation. I get y equals 4 times 4 minus 4. I know I have to do that multiplication first, so I get y equals 16 minus 4. And once I do that final subtraction, I get y equals to 12. I then take that value for y and plug it into my table. I then needed to find the value for x equals 6, or the value for y when x is equal to 6. I know I could do my substitution, and that leaves me with y equals 4 times 6 minus 4. If I do my multiplication of 4 times 6, that equals 24. I'm left with y equals 24 minus 4. Once I do that subtraction, I get y is equal to 20. I take this value for y, plug it in my table where x equals 6. Lastly, I needed to find the value for x is equal to 8. I substituted it into my equation. I got y equals 4 times 8 minus 4. When I do this multiplication, because I need to do that first because of PEMDAS, I'm left with y is equal to 32 minus 4. And once I do the subtraction, I get y is equal to 28. I take that value of y, plug it back into my table for when the value of x is equal to 8, and I have completed my table. Hopefully this video helps you guys while you're learning from home. Hopefully you have a great day, and let us know in class if you had any questions. Thank you.